For some people, the way to heal that suffering would be to empower that animal, to heal that animal, to help the animal get back to the best version of itself so that it can go on with its life. Maybe it's a deer that has been struck in the road at night by a car that didn't see the deer. So there are some people that would say, let's heal that deer, help to mend the broken bones, help to heal the organs so that deer can go and have a beautiful life because they love the animal. Other people would look at the same deer in the same circumstance and they'd say, this deer is suffering. The best thing to do is to end the suffering by ending its life, by helping it to transition away from this world to the next world. Now think about that. Both people love animals. Both people want the same thing. They want to end the suffering. But the love has directed them in different ways to go about doing that. So that's just an example of what I mean when I say that love can mean different things to different people. Our relationships certainly can result from unresolved hurt. And you're going to see why to an even deeper level in this module. But I think you know this. If you've been hurt in a past relationship, I've had friends that tell me about this. The first time they fell in love with another person, that's a very specific kind of love. In high school, college, they've never loved deeply before. So without holding anything back, they love completely. They become completely vulnerable. They surrender to that love. When the love doesn't work out, if that's the case, they are hurt so deeply that what they say is, never again will I allow myself to love that deeply. What that means is never again will I allow myself to surrender all aspects of myself in exchange for hoping to experience an even greater aspect with this person. They'll say, never again will I'll always hold something back. I always keep a little bit back for myself so I will never be hurt that way again, the way that I was hurt when my first romance didn't work out. That's an example of how unresolved hurt, not loving deeply to heal those hurts, can affect our relationships. Certainly it can affect our jobs, our careers, through our self-esteem, our self-worth, our willingness to put ourselves out there. It can affect our lives. So this conversation that we're having, it's about much more than simply romance. It is about our ability to awaken a force that already lives within us.
When I was in school, I was taught that we are these vulnerable, frail, tissue-based bodies that are in constant need of defending ourselves from the very environment that we come from, that we're supposed to be afraid of that environment. And in that thinking, the world looks like a scary place. And in that world, we feel that we need to design things outside of us, external technology, to keep us safe and to empower us and help us reach our great potential. You and I are the product of that thinking in that world, and we all are. We're, to whatever degree we're aware of it, that's what's happening now. So I'm going to offer another perspective, and this is based on what the science is showing us. The average human, whatever average is, but the average human, it said, has about 50 trillion cells, give or take, in the human body. So we know that. I'm going to offer a little bit different way to think about our bodies, and this will lead to the empowering nature of where we're going with this. Every one of those 50 trillion cells has an electrical potential, about 0.07 volts. And you say, well, that's not very much. And I say, well, you're right, until you do the math. 0.07 volts times 50 trillion cells. And think about that. We have an electrical potential in our bodies about 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential. And what would happen if we could harness that and direct it toward our own healing, or toward our longevity enzymes that we all have in our bodies, or toward our intuition, or toward our resilience, or toward deep states of inner knowing that are revealed in so many of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions? Well, if we could do that, but it doesn't end there. Every one of those 50 trillion cells, it functions as a transistor, just like in a resistor, just like the old transistors and resistors in our old television sets. Some of you remember those, or the old telephones. Now they're miniaturized on to the chips and the computer that is in the machine you're watching me on, or on the mobile phone. Every one of our cells does that. We are resistors, we are transistors. Every one of our cells is a capacitor. It stores information and releases it when it reaches a certain threshold. Every cell in our body releases photons of light and is a photon receptor. We receive photons of light. Light is information. We are constantly interacting with our external, we call the external environment, the field, through this exchange of collapsing and emerging photons. Every cell in our body has antennae on the outside that are attuned to electromagnetic frequencies, and the very DNA and the genes in the DNA also function as antennae. We are gated circuits. We store and retrieve information in memory, just like we do on the computers, and so much more. And here's where this gets really interesting. What I'm describing, we are what is now being called a soft technology. So we are not hard computer chips and wires and chemicals. We are cell membranes, ion potentials across cell walls. We are neurons, and all this is so awesome. But if you're sleeping, this is a good time to wake up, because all of the external technology that we are in awe of today, and we have amazing external technology. Not one function in that external technology has been developed that does not mimic what we already do in the cells of our bodies, except we do it better. We are extraordinary soft technology. And now here's what links this information to this program. We're the only form of life that we know of today on this planet. Maybe others, I'm sure there is in other worlds, but in this planet, we're the only form of life that can consciously self-regulate our internal technology. And what I mean by that, we're the only form of life that can sit down in a moment in time and say, in this moment, I choose to self-regulate and strengthen my immune system. Well, who doesn't want that in the age of a pandemic? We're the only form of life that can choose to awaken those longevity enzymes that are with us until the last breath that we take in the new stem cells. We're the only form of life that can say, I choose to consciously access deep states of intuition rather than allowing it to simply happen spontaneously whenever it does. We're the only form of life that can create resilience to change. Man, who doesn't need that? Our world is changing faster than we can track it. It's wearing people out emotionally. It's causing depression. People are taking their lives because they don't know how to deal with this change. We self-regulate our inner technology, our soft technology, through thought, feeling, emotion, belief, breath, and focus.
We function, our biology functions on a premise, and you've heard this before, it's called use it or lose it. If those brain cells are not engaged in a meaningful way, the body says, oh, well, I'm here, but I'm not being used, so you must not need me. So I am going to take myself out of the picture so that we're not wasting energy from the body that can go to other resources in the body. So we're not wasting that ATP and oxygen and other kinds of energy. So if I'm not needed, I'll just take myself out of the picture. Well, this principle is not isolated to the human brain, use it or lose it. It applies to every system in the human body. When we replace brain function with technology, there are parts of the brain that will begin to atrophy and cease to function in an individual with those, the addition of those technologies, one individual. The proposals that are out there right now are en masse to replace humans, to begin inserting computer chips in the brain, for example, of all newborns by the year 2030, or RFID chips under the skin, nano sensors, either in the bloodstream or in the respiratory system. They're constantly reporting vital data outside of the body back to collectors and sensors. All these technologies are already available. So it's not a matter of, they'll never develop that. They already exist and they're being used for other applications. It's not the technology, it's the problem. It's the thinking. underlying the technology and the thinking is that we need something outside of ourselves to be the best version of ourselves, and the evidence doesn't support that. In many instances, what we find is our own natural biology not only meets, but even exceeds the capacity of the very technology we're being asked to put into our bodies. So when we begin thinking about these kinds of movements, and the movement is called the transhuman movement. Trans means beyond human, so beyond human, merging humans with this technology. Is it natural? Is it the next step in our evolution? It can't be, because we actually lose vital functions in the process of merging with the technology. We give ourselves away to that technology. It is a forced evolution. It is an artificial evolution, and we devolve rather than evolve if we are if we're embracing these things into our lives. And once again, I want to be clear, I am not against technology. I worked in the corporations. I worked with high-tech industry during the Cold War years behind the scenes as a senior computer systems designer in the defense industry, working on advanced programs and systems. I saw some of the most advanced tech, including AI, which was already around back in the 1980s in the military-industrial complex. It's just now becoming available commercially, but we've had AI for a long time. And the point that I'm making is the tech is just tech until someone applies it, and the thinking underlying how it's applied is where the problems come from. So let me give you an example. Computer chip in the brain for one individual who has given his or her life in defense of their country in a battlefield halfway across the world, come home missing arms or legs, missing limbs. What a beautiful thing to have a chip in the brain that can speak to advanced prosthetics, robotic arms and legs, that allow that individual to hold their babies in their arms and to feed themselves and to wash their own hair and brush their own teeth. I mean, who wouldn't want that? It's a beautiful thing. Those are one-off applications. The proposals are immense. All people have computer chips in the brain. All people have the nanosensors in the body. All people have the RFID chips for a number of reasons in their body and under their skin. This is where we get into trouble. Because if we define human by genetically, by a blueprint in the genome of the DNA, and if we define human by our capacities that we cherish, such as love, empathy, sympathy, compassion, forgiveness, the ability to heal, the ability to imagine, to innovate, to create, to share our ideas, to verbalize, to communicate. If we define our species by those parameters, we begin losing those parameters when our biology is replaced with technology for just the reason that I shared with you with the brain cells. All right, if the brain cells aren't used, they begin to atrophy and die in one individual because the feeling is they're not needed. Well, that principle applies to every system in the human body. It applies to the immune system, chemicals that mimic the way the immune system works. The immune system begins to believe it is not needed anymore because the chemicals are doing the work for them. Reproductive system works for the whole body. So this is how you lose a species. This is exactly how you lose a species. The question is, do we love ourselves enough to embrace the deep truth of what it means to be human? Do we love ourselves enough to accept our humanness, to accept the power of our humanness? Or are we willing to give our humanness away in exchange for the speed and the efficiency of a computer chip and some artificial intelligence?
One of my last years in the corporate environment, I shared an office with a woman because our office space was limited. So we had very different functions and simply shared space together. And because there was no competition, we became very good friends. We just simply spoke with one another, went to lunch together a lot. One day we came back from lunch and she picked up her voicemail, and as she was listening to her messages, I saw her face turn sheet white and she sat down, and I said, "What happened?" And she shared with me a story, and I'm going to share that story with you now to illustrate. She had just had a friend
that was her age that had a young daughter. This daughter had graduated from high school just a couple of years earlier. A beautiful young woman, was extremely gifted in many areas. She was very athletic, she excelled at academics, she was a wonderful artist, and she chose to become a model when she graduated from high school, and her parents supported her in that choice. She had done some modeling and done very well. There's a modeling school in New York City, and had just completed a series of jobs, and it appeared that 2 years out of high school, she was on her way to a pretty successful modeling career. Well, after the first couple of jobs, the modeling agencies began to say, for this kind of work, you'll have to change your appearance a little bit. And they started with some obvious things, and they, even at her young age, they did some tucks around her midline. They enlarged her breasts, relatively common kinds of plastic surgery. Her parents supported her in that, and they said, well, that's what this industry takes. That's what it takes. Well, it wasn't long before the modeling agencies began asking for more extreme forms of modification. And for example, she had a really cute little overbite when she'd smile. And they said, well, you can't have an overbite and be a model. So they asked her, and she did, underwent a procedure where her jaws were broken and reset, wired shut. And the idea was that the overbite would be gone. And to be honest, I saw before and after pictures. I could see very little difference. I really could see very little difference. And I thought the overbite was kind of nice. But while her jaws had been wired, of course, she was on limited diet. She lost quite a bit of weight, and which is generally desirable in the modeling industry. And as she lost that weight, some of these ribs, the lower ribs, floating ribs, began to stick out more than they had before. And the modeling people said, well, that's no problem. We can address that surgically. And they did. They went in and took out these 2 floating ribs on either side. And something began to happen with her. And maybe you've seen this before. Body weight kind of goes in modes. I was a competitive runner for almost 20 years. And there were some times I could eat anything, no matter what it was. And I just couldn't keep weight on my body. And there were other times I could think about eating and not do it, and I would gain weight. And your body kind of goes into a mode. You can stop eating for a while and you'll still maintain a constant weight, or maybe even gain weight. And you can begin to lose weight, and then you say, okay, well, that's enough. I'll start eating again, and your body is still in a lose weight mode, and it keeps going. And that's what happened to this woman. She began to lose weight and was in a lose weight mode. And the phone call that my friend had that morning was from the young girl's mother. Her daughter had just died in the hospital from complications of malnutrition. And my question was, why did this happen? And on certain airlines, I won't mention airline names, but certain airlines, you have to go through Dallas before you go anywhere else. So when I went to Toronto, I had to go from Albuquerque to Dallas to get to Toronto, or to Kansas City to go to Dallas. If you've been to DFW, you know Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. It's a huge airport, and there's a tram system that takes you from concourse to concourse, in theory, when it's up and working. And when it is up and working, it's a wonderful system. It really works well. Typically what happens is we come in on the end of gate 6 and we go out on gate 44, and there's a good half mile, I know, or more between the two. And on this particular day, we were at the bottom of a large escalator waiting for the trains to come by. And there was a couple that was standing next to me. There's about a 3-minute wait between trains. There was a couple standing next to me, an elderly couple, and apparently the gentleman was hard of hearing. And this couple had an ongoing dialogue, a constant dialogue, where they were between themselves, where they were evaluating everyone around them. And apparently, it's something they had just always done. It seemed very comfortable for them. And as people would come in, they'd say, "Oh, look at who dressed that man this morning? Look at her. Why does she do that? Look at that earring." Well, I was standing here. They were standing here, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw an extremely large woman coming down the escalator. I had a client at one time that weighed about 450, and I know that this woman was real close to 400 pounds. She was coming down the escalator, and she was holding an old-fashioned suitcase, old linoleum with brass fittings on the side, hard shell. It was 115 in Dallas that day. And I knew that for whatever reason she was traveling, she must have had a good reason, because travel could not have been easy for her. The heat, the accommodations of the seats, Her legs were swollen, her ankles, and she was carrying this funny little suitcase. And she came up and stood right next to us. And this couple continued to do what they'd been doing. And because the gentleman was hard of hearing, as he was sharing with his wife, we all heard. As he said to his wife, "Look at that woman, isn't that terrible? Why doesn't she do something with herself? She should be ashamed of herself for coming in public like that." Now this is one of those rare opportunities. I was here, the couple was here, and the heavy woman was here. And I believe on an unspoken level, she consented to me looking at her eyes because she looked right at me. So I looked into her eyes and she never said a word, and that's how I know that she heard everything that happened. She never said a word. And while we were waiting for that train, tears welled up in her eyes. And I could see she was really fighting just to hold it back, and her face got very red. She'd been hurt by what she'd heard. We got in the train, the couple sat next to me, and I spoke with them, and they were really a nice couple. They were not malicious. I don't think there was a malicious intent. It was just a very unconscious thing that they had done with themselves. And in that moment, what I knew was that the three of us had had a rare opportunity. The woman had had the opportunity to hear herself judged. The couple had had the opportunity to judge someone else, and I had the opportunity to witness. Both of these stories illustrate the seventh Essene mystery of relationship. It's the mystery of allowing for perfection in the imperfections of life. The young woman that lost her life, my question is, what standard was she holding herself accountable to that made her feel that she was imperfect and must change the body that she was given in this life to accommodate? What standard? What did she use as a yardstick? The couple that saw this large woman, me describing her as a large woman to you right now. Until you compare your experience or your life to an external reference, how can it be anything other than perfect? And my question to you is to please be aware of what it is that you hold yourself accountable to.
Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, this is verse 106, translated from the Nag Hammadi Library. And if you do not have a copy, it's in our books, and you can go to any library and pick this up. Verse 106. Look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says, when you make the two, thought and emotion, one. So the Gospel of Thomas is talking about thought and emotion. It's saying when you make your thought and your emotion one, look at what happens. You will say to the mountain, "Mountain, move away," and the mountain will move away. It's saying that when you can marry your thought and your emotion into one single potent force, that is when you have the power to speak. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas, another verse. Now this is verse 48. It says almost the same thing. This was so important that it was recorded at least 3 different times in the same gospel. Look at what this says. If the two make peace with each other in this one house. When Jesus is talking about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? Precisely you. You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace with each other in this house, if thought and emotion become one, if they make peace with each other in this house, look what happens. They will say to the mountain, "Move away," and it will move away. He's telling us again, in a completely different verse, how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion. But they still haven't told us how. How do you do this? That's the next piece. In the early Christian Bible, your Bible today, there is a passage. How many have heard, "Ask and ye shall receive"? Have you heard that before? Ask and ye shall receive. Have you heard that? I know people that ask and ask and ask and nothing happens.
Because the asking is not done with the voice. The asking is not done, please, please bring this to my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must speak to the field, to the divine matrix in the language that the field recognizes. And a language that's meaningful. The field doesn't recognize our voice, it recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart, we have a feeling, creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the field recognizes. So when you create the feeling in your heart as if your prayer is already answered, that creates the electrical and the magnetic waves that bring that answer to you. And you're going to see this in just a moment. Ask and you shall receive. While we still have this passage in our text, in the Bible that you have today, the King James Version, John 16, 23, 24, what you have is the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version looks like this. This is the edited version. Whatsoever ye ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. Okay, this is the edited version. This is so amazing to me because they took out the two sentences that tell us how to ask. In the 4th century, when the edits happened, they took those two sentences out. Would you like to see those two original sentences? This is the original Aramaic. It begins, it looks very similar. So this is the retranslated version with the missing pieces. All things that you ask straightly, directly from inside my name, you will be given. It says, so far you've not done this, because if we ask with our voice, we have not done this. Now here's the piece that was edited. Here is what was lost. Look at these two very powerful sentences. Ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full. Look at what it's saying. It's not saying to speak a word, it's saying to be surrounded, to feel as if. If you are surrounded, you are feeling as if your answer has already happened. Be enveloped. If you want the perfect relationship in your life, if you want the healing in the body of your loved ones, feel the feeling of what it is like as if that has already happened. Be enveloped by what you desire, because that is when your thought and your emotion become one. You think the thought of the healing in your loved ones, and you feel the love of that thought. They become one, and that is the language that this field recognizes. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that?
The universe is holographic. This is how nature communicates information. Probably one of the most amazing examples that come to mind from this, beyond what I'm sharing with you, you've all heard of the 100th monkey principle. And this comes from a scientific study that was done from primates on a number of islands, and I believe they were in the Pacific. They were in the South Pacific. And the anthropologists were studying the habits of primates. In this case, they were chimpanzees. And what they found was that the chimpanzees were having problems finding food, and that they resorted to eating ants that were deep in the earth, in ant hills, and it was hard to get to them. So there was one chimp that did something that had never been seen in any of the chimp communities on any of the islands in the past. He took a stick and he fashioned the stick as a tool, consciously, intentionally fashioned the stick as a tool put the stick down into the anthill. The ants began to cling to the stick, and when he pulled the stick up, his tool allowed him to have access to those ants in a way that he'd never had before. So this was a pretty cool thing to do, but where the holographic principle comes in is that it wasn't long before the chimps on other islands with no communication physically, they weren't like swimming from island to island. They weren't radioing one another from island to island. But without any visible means of communication, chimps on the other islands began to do the same thing. They learned from the chimp that was innovative and tried something new. That is a beautiful example of the holographic principle. It didn't have to go linearly from island to island. One chimp figured out a new way to do things. It was in the field, it was in consciousness, and all of a sudden other chimps began to access that consciousness. That is the power of the holographic principle. All right? One of the really fascinating things, and I'm going to address this briefly as we go through this explanation, is that our experience of time is holographic as well. Because time, there's nothing in physics that limits us from moving backward in time as well as forward in time. And there are scientific studies that are happening right now suggesting that we actually do this when we experience a memory of the past, that a part of us is actually traveling back to that moment in the past. And the reason this is so powerful is because the experiments now are strongly suggesting that from this moment in time, we can go back into our past when we have had trauma, and that we can actually communicate with ourselves in the past to shift our experience of the trauma so that we're healing it in the present moment. Wow, if that isn't a mind blower, I don't know what is. Think about that. It means that if you are a child 50 years ago experiencing a traumatic event and you are feeling alone, if that child senses that there is an acceptance, that there's not a judgment, that the shame of that traumatic experience is being healed in that time, then there is a communication and a mutual healing. The child at that time is being helped as you've gone back into time, and you are being helped because now the trauma of your earlier self doesn't have the same meaning to your adult self. Tremendous studies being done around this. The point is, it's all possible because of the holographic principle. So while Albert Einstein believed that we were separate from the world, John Wheeler said that we are an integral part of the world. He said that we live in a universe that is still building itself. Exactly. He said that, and I love this about John Wheeler, he said that when we build the microscopes to look at the smallest elements of matter inside the quantum atom, and when we build the telescopes to look into the depths of space, what John Wheeler said was that we will never find the smallest particle of matter, and we'll never find the edge of the universe. He said because the act of us searching is an act of creation that will always place something there for us to see. Now I have to think about that as a deep concept. He said the act of us looking, peering into the world with the expectation that we will see something is actually an act of creating something. And now our own science is beginning to help us understand how that is. The human heart is the strongest generator of electricity and magnetism in the human body. And our world is made of electrical and magnetic fields. So when we feel deeply with our heart, we're actually influencing. Now, I don't want to use the word control or manipulate. We're not imposing our will, but we have the ability now to actually interact with the world around us from a distance. And this is the very core of our most cherished and ancient spiritual traditions.
The Institute of HeartMath was able to document the existence of this field. So this is not a hypothetical field. This is not New Age. It's not the prana. It's not the aura, although it may be connected to the prana and the aura. This is an electrical and a magnetic field that surrounds every human heart. It's shaped like a donut. It's called a torus. They built a special device, and they had human DNA, and they wanted really pure DNA. So this is DNA from placenta. It's isolated, and they wanted to see if an individual that has learned to regulate the emotions can change the shape of this DNA. The shape. Here's why that's important. What researchers have found is this: the DNA in the cells of your body does in fact change shape. In the presence of anger, hate, jealousy, rage, stress, those kinds of what we would call negative emotions, the DNA is compressed. It's wound up very, very tightly and compressed. And because it is wound tightly, it cannot express fully. So in the presence of anger, hate, jealousy, rage, your DNA is not able to fully function. But you know that when people are living in stress, their health suffers. In the presence of positive emotions, gratitude, appreciation, love, and compassion, look at what happened with DNA. It actually relaxed.
For 300 years, science has told the story of separation. It's told us that life is completely random, human life is random, that we're separate from our bodies and powerless to have any effect on healing our bodies, that we're separate from the world around us, that civilization is only 5,000 years old and we are at the pinnacle of sophistication, and that competition is the way to solve our problems. Those are now called false assumptions of science, 6 false assumptions. And the world that we have today is the result of those false assumptions. New discoveries have given us new reasons to change all of those. New discoveries are telling us that life itself, origin of life, it's not random, that human life is not random, that we're deeply connected to our bodies, we're deeply connected to the earth, civilization is cyclic, and nature is based upon cooperation. And if we can embrace those new truths as we solve the greatest crises, the biggest problems that we've ever been asked to face, then we open the door to a beautiful new world based upon sustainable ways of thinking and sustainable ways of living. And that's why I'm excited about this conversation.
Yes, you said something very that it struck me. You know?
I saw it.
You said something which most of us would consider a miracle, which is self-healing. Like, a lot of people still don't believe that there is such thing, and they need proof. They need to have a neighbor who did that. They need to see it on TV, filmed in real time. They need proof to believe that. Why is that, and is it really possible?
When we look at our bodies and what our own science now is beginning to help us understand, it is very similar to what our most cherished and ancient indigenous and spiritual traditions have always said. What science is telling us is this, is that the cells in our bodies that determine our health respond to the chemistry released by the brain. And the chemistry released by the brain is triggered from the feelings in the human heart. What we know is that every moment of every day, there's a conversation between our heart and our brain. It's a two-way conversation. Our heart is sending signals to the brain, and based upon those signals, the brain releases chemistry into the body. When we feel frightened, angry, hate, jealousy, rage, frustration, that sends a very jagged, irregular signal to the brain, and it releases stress chemistry, which is good for a moment, but it's not good 24/7.
Do we see that? Do we see that jagged? Because that's what was another point of view. Like, how do we know it's like this? How do we sense it? Do we film it? Do we record it somehow?
The answer is yes to everything that you said. There's an organization called the Institute of HeartMath, HeartMath, but it's all one word. They're based in Northern California. I am not their employee, but I have worked closely with them for 20 years now. And they are pioneers in uncovering the deepest mysteries of the human heart in ways that conventional science does not. So conventional science says the heart pumps blood. Well, you can make a machine to do that, but what else does our heart do? So the Institute of HeartMath, to answer your question, has documented this, the information between the heart, and you can actually see the information between the heart and the brain when we feel feelings of well-being, appreciation, gratitude, compassion, care. Then the signal is a very smooth, rhythmic signal to our brain, and our brain says, the world is safe, so I don't need the stress chemistry. So it begins to release the anti-aging hormones in our bodies, and powerful immune response is created within our bodies in the presence of this smooth signal. The connection is called coherence, heart-brain coherence, and optimum coherence now has been measured. It's a very low frequency, 0.10 hertz. That is the language that whales communicate in the oceans. It's a very low frequency. So if we can create the feelings in our hearts, for example, of 0.10 hertz, that is an optimum connection between our heart and our brain, and that begins releasing the healing chemistry from our brain into the cells of our bodies, and this has been documented. It reduces high blood pressure, reduces vascular plaque, reduces the chances for stroke. When we are able to feel those kinds of feelings sustained over long periods of time, the immune system increases. The DHEA level is the precursor to all hormones in the body. Every hormone must have the DHEA. DHEA increases 100% from only 3 minutes of feeling the feelings: appreciation, gratitude, compassion, love, while the stress chemistry decreases 23% in the same time, and all we're doing is having a feeling. Those are the qualities that the body needs to begin to heal itself.
Whether we're talking about moons moving around the planet or we're talking about planets moving around the sun, they are made of atoms. And now we know that those atoms look like this. So when we look into the night sky and we see our moon, or we look through a telescope and we see the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, what we know is we're not really seeing physical things, although they appear physical to us. What we're seeing are collections of what you're seeing on the screen. Pulsing fields of information that appear as solid to us. So what we're saying is it depends upon the perspective. On one level, on the quantum level, these planets and the moons around the planets and the solar systems actually are functioning on this level as pulsing fields of information. And on another level, depending on how we want to engineer them and how we observe them, they are the physical essence of what we see. This is one of the quandaries in physics, because the very famous double slit experiment done early in the 20th century was the first to pose this conundrum, this mystery, because it appears that quantum particles express themselves as waves of energy, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now, until they are observed, and the act of observing the wave collapses it into a particle that becomes the physical reality. So that's another mind blower, and I know you've heard me talk about it and other people talk about it in other programs. I won't spend a lot of time on it here. But the answer is that the new perception of atoms as pulsing waves of probability, pulsing fields of probability, it gives us a deeper insight into the reality that we live in. But where this gets really interesting is when it comes to you and me. I mentioned a moment ago that the average human body has about 50 trillion cells
whatever an average person is. But each of those cells is made of about 100 trillion or so atoms. Every one of those atoms is not a static body, but it is a dynamic field of energy that is constantly emerging from the field and collapsing back into the field, number one. Number two, every one of those atoms is about 99.999999999% empty space. It means that you and I are less physical than we have been led to believe. We're mostly empty space. We appear physical because of the way our brains are perceiving the energy being given off by the atoms. So an atom, when you're talking about an atom, it's less of a thing in time and more of a place in space. And what that means is that you and I are less of a thing and more of a place in space-time. This is why your healing is possible in the way that it is, because your perceptions form the template for the way the atoms are going to express as they emerge and collapse into the field. If you like everything about you, you don't change your perception. If you are choosing a deeper state of healing, for example, or a healthier state of your physical being, or a healthier state of your emotional being, you are one of the rare forms of life, perhaps the only one that we know of on Earth, with the ability to consciously choose to shift the way you perceive yourself, so that that shift in perception forms a new template, a new blueprint for the way those atoms are emerging from the field to reflect your new perception of yourself. And the beauty is you don't have to know any of that. I'm answering these two questions and I'm sharing with you the science. But the beauty is you don't need to know that. And there are many really good teachers, really good books, spiritual practices that have been around for 5,000 years that invite us to hold a positive sense of ourselves. Rather than looking in the mirror and focusing on the imperfections, the illusion of the imperfections that you may see, the invitation is to look into that mirror and see yourself in the perfection of your highest vision. Now, people will say, Greg, isn't that lying to yourself? And the answer is no. This comes from a deep understanding of how the quantum field works. You've got to give the quantum field something to work with. If you're looking at yourself, focusing on what you perceive as the flaws and the imperfection, that's what you're feeding into the field. That's the blueprint that the atoms are going to adhere to as they are emerging back into the field to reinforce what your focus is. So when you focus on the image, on the vision, on an altered perception of what you choose to experience in your life, what you're doing, or in your body, the healing in your body is the example I'm using here, but this principle applies to many other things. When you focus on that, what you're actually doing is you are honoring your relationship with the field by giving it something to work with. You're giving it a blueprint, a template of what it is that you would like to experience. The key is, and this is the bottom line for me here, is that we must become in our lives what we choose to experience in the world.
When we replace our bodies with synthetics, we lose the ability to do the things we're talking about. We lose the ability to access the neuropeptides in the same way and to be able to ask your body, what color is your pain? And I'm going to go back. What we're talking about, the humanness that is on the line that we stand to lose, falls under the umbrella in the first Q&A of what we call divinity, human divinity.
Yeah.
And divinity is not linked to religion in contemporary definitions. Many people link it to religions, but the definition of divinity, it's about the ability for us to be the best version of ourselves. It's defined as our ability to transcend, to become more than perceived limitations, and that's our divinity. So expressions of divinity are imagination, creativity, innovation, the ability to share ideas with one another, love, compassion, forgiveness. Your healing begins with divinity, empathy, sympathy, compassion. These are all expressions of divinity. We stand to lose these with synthetics in the body, because synthetics cannot, and AI cannot have these kinds of experiences. They can't access the human experience. We're only beginning to understand what it means to be human, and we're on the precipice of giving our humanness away to technology before we even know what it means to be human. I think, I'm not saying don't. I would never attempt to convince or persuade someone of what to do. I'm informing. And what I'm saying is, once it's gone, it's gone. We owe it to ourselves to know what it means to be human first. Then, if the trade-off is worth it to an individual, they know, at least consciously, what they're giving away. And most people, and this goes back to the question you asked earlier, how do you inform young people, and how do you inform even adults? Most people, when the facts are clear, the choices become obvious. We're simply sharing facts and truths that are not commonly shared in the mainstream. And I've had, so for example, we just talked about the neural network in the heart. I've had cardiologists in my 4-day events that come up to me during the break and the stage and say, why don't we know about this? Why don't I know about this in my practice? And I said, well, you're here now, so you do. He said, yeah, but why aren't we teaching this stuff in medical school? And I said, I can't answer that question, but it's apparent that it's not. So the better we know ourselves, this is the key. The better we know ourselves, the less we fear change in the world around us. Because the better we know ourselves, our sense of well-being doesn't depend on that external world. And perhaps most importantly, the better we know ourselves, the less we fear our own power. And this is really what we're talking about. We're conditioned to feel meek, to put everyone else first. That's all of our conditioning. We are conditioned to be afraid of our power. And once you begin to really, and there's a responsibility that comes with that power. There's accountability that comes with the power. And a lot of people would prefer not to engage with that. And that's a choice. But the better we know ourselves, the less we fear our own power. And the better we know ourselves, the less urgency we feel to replace ourselves with technology. Because we are the technology that we're waiting for. We are the technology.
The images you're going to see they're not professional images. They were done by hand in a medicineless hospital in Beijing, China. It's a medicineless hospital. It's almost an oxymoron. It is a place unlike anything you see here in the West. I have yet to see one of these here in the West. What is about to happen is, this is one example, but they do this all the time. This isn't a one-shot deal. I don't want you to think it's just a one-time only. There's a woman who's gone to Western medical doctors. They've diagnosed her with an inoperable bladder cancer, and they said, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do. They said, be comfortable to the end of your days. She said, well, thanks for your opinion. I'm going to go someplace else. She now is at a medicineless hospital. She has learned about her body, and she's learned many of the principles that we're talking about right now. She's learned new life-affirming ways to nourish her body, to move her body in gentle life-affirming ways to stimulate the electrical and the magnetic fields in her body. She's learned new ways to believe, new ways to breathe the breath of life, deep life-affirming breaths with her diaphragm out. So I like that. When I say that, and I hear people going, I say, oh, good audience, good audience. And at some point, it makes sense to undergo what she is about to undergo. I'm going to answer some of your questions right now. The woman is awake. She's conscious. She believes in the process that is happening. She has prepared her body with life-affirming actions, such as the ones I just described. Through a sonogram, through an ultrasound, we can look at her body while 3 practitioners are doing all the things I just shared. They aren't touching her. They are feeling the feeling as if the woman is already healed. Now, this is powerful. They're not judging her cancer is right or wrong or good or bad. They're saying it's a possibility because everything is possible. They're saying it's one possibility. They're not saying you got to go away or we're going to cut you out or radiate you. They're saying it's one possibility, and now they're saying we know the language to choose a new possibility, and they're feeling the feeling of what it feels like to be in the presence of a woman who is fully healed, already enabled, fully capacitated. It's already happened in real time, in 2 minutes and 40 seconds, on the computer screen of the sonogram. You can see that change mirrored in her body. Her atoms will respond that quickly. And to many people, I've shown this in many medical organizations, they say it's a miracle. It's only a miracle until you understand what happens. And then what is it? It's a technology. But it's not a woo-woo area. There's no really cool music happening and the light doesn't shimmer and there's no, nothing weird rainbows in the room or anything. It's just the way things seem to work. And they do this all the time. And I'm going to let the video go to the end because they'll give themselves an applause. They'll say, good for this woman. They have a 95% success rate after 5 years if people will do what they're trained to do afterward, life-affirming lifestyle. And then they'll say next, and another one comes in. They do this all the time because it's part of their culture and they allow for it. And I'm going to ask for no audio at first. Bring the audio down. They're going to begin a chant. And there's no magic in this chant. The chant is a word that they have agreed upon that reinforces for them the feeling. So it could be any word. So here's the woman. She's awake. She's conscious. There's her little tummy. You want to bring the audio down, please? All the way down. Okay, on the left-hand side is a reference image, freeze frame. The black is the emptiness inside her bladder. There's the lump right there. That's the tumor. Now they're taking a snapshot. A moment in time for reference. The right side, now the image is coming up real time. If you're trained in ultrasound and you think this might be a hoax, look at the floor of the bladder and watch the registration marks and you see they don't change. That's how you know it's not a hoax. Okay, if you go ahead and bring the audio up so you can listen to the chant. And they're saying, wah, sa, wah, sa. It roughly translates into the words already done. It's already happened. It's already healed. Watch the right side of the screen. Watch the right side of the screen. So the left is reference, the right is real time. This is her body right now. Saying gone, 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 gone. Okay, will you hit pause, please? I'm going to ask our AV, can you hit pause one more time? Let's see if we can toggle the bar. One more time. Uno más, por favor. Well, I guess that's where it is. Okay, well, you get the idea. The tumor's gone. Some of you have seen it, some have never seen it. How do you feel when you see something like that? Is it meaningful to you at all? Do you feel that you have to go halfway around the world to have an experience like this if you wanted to do this? You don't. That's the reason I'm sharing this. You have everything that you need in your body, and you have all the wisdom of how our reality works. All that we are required to do is now have the understanding that allows us to believe in this possibility, to allow it to happen in our lives. Now, I'm sharing this with one woman. This is changing the life of one woman. They're feeling the feeling as if the outcome, whatever it is, has already happened. The same principle I shared yesterday applies for a large geographic area. People that were trained to feel peace during the Israeli-Lebanese war. When they felt peace, all that happened was peace. We've done this with Princeton University on the Global Consciousness Project, and we've seen those little eggs that we saw yesterday that show human consciousness all over the world. We've seen that respond. So it's the same principle, that whether you're talking about personal healing, global peace, personal abundance, your personal relationships, joy in your life, whatever it is, it's the same principle. Okay, go ahead and let this finish, please. Okay, so you can see that tumor is gone, and that was 2 minutes and 40 seconds, real time. But I want you to see what they do next. They give themselves a hand. So how do you feel when you see something like it? Is it meaningful to you at all? Was that a miracle or was it a technology? It's a very powerful internal technology. It's a technology that you were born with, the power to communicate with the stuff your body and this universe is made of. Doesn't it make perfect sense that it would be that way? I mean, honestly, doesn't it? Whether we are living in a simulation, a virtual reality, the real thing, it's irrelevant. If you know the code, you choose the limits. And I think what's happening is that we have placed ourselves in the position where we've created in the world around us the conditions that are forcing us to come to terms with our reality. We must think about our world differently. We must think about our bodies differently, because we're creating conditions that we simply won't survive if we don't do that. And the power to do precisely that is what happens when we ask ourselves, who are we? Who are we? I'll tell you who we are, is that we are reality makers. That's who we are. The key is we can make only what we believe, and the power to do that's a power that truly lives in every single one of us. Every one of us. So as you go to all of the programs and all the wisdom and the brilliant minds and beautiful hearts of all the people who are here today, I'm just so honored to be sharing this conference with every one of them. My prayer is that this offers a bit of a context, kind of a global context, and everything everybody's saying fits in here somewhere, because they're all giving us tools to know how we do these things, how we become in our hearts the things that we choose to experience in our lives. And that's where I'm going to end today. You've all heard this before. The bottom line to all of this is that you don't have to know any of it. The monasteries in Tibet, those monks and nuns, they don't need to know any of this stuff because they were born accepting it. In our left brain minds, we need a reason to think of things differently. The key is that we must literally become in our hearts the things that we'd like to experience in our world, and in that way we are those reality makers.
Our job is to express through this physical form and out into the world, and by doing so, a byproduct is we heal. We heal if we let the continuum continue. But if we stop it right here at us and our stories, and we get locked into our past experiences, and we keep reiterating them and keep, like the broken record, keep referencing them, what is happening is we're building a constitution that one day will break through and express on beyond our story. But we can learn to do that consciously and intentionally, rather than having to wait for the pain that generates and the breakdown of our physical systems and our bodies in our organs and glands and our outlooks and our perceptions of self, as they begin to break down because we are holding on to this illusionary version of who we are as a personality. What happens eventually is it builds up enough that it breaks through in a painful manner. And we would really love to be able to inspire people enough to understand their true origin, the makeup of their true selves, so that they can more easily and more gracefully allow this continuum of energy to flow through this body gateway, this doorway that we are, and out into the world as a solution. As our creative ideas are being honored by us, and our impetus for doing things in the way that we honestly feel in an integrated, heartfelt, deep wisdom manner, are the best solutions for us. When we can claim our sovereignty back again and recognize that we're made of the solution. And it's each of our individual gift to humanity to live into that. It isn't something we have to ask permission for or earn our way into. It's why we came. We came to do that. And as we allow ourselves to begin that process, we pick up momentum. And as we pick up momentum of our creative expression into the world, and we feel the sensations that happen under those conditions, we start to recognize, oh, this is who I am. This is what is meant to be. And we allow that momentum to carry us into the friction and the conflict and the non-supportive nature that we are met with in these social unfortunate norms that have been unfortunate because they're teaching us how to, muscle up in the face of it. these norms that have become regular life, assuming that we do not have the power, that we are not connected, that we need something else to tell us who we are and what has heart and meaning to us. And I'll just lastly say that in all of my experience, whether it is interdimensional experience with in my own consciousness and my own evolutionary process of awakening, or in my clinical experience in working with people, that the number one expression of that divinity and that number one ability to embody that divine essence, that high frequency energy that is beyond the third dimension, but is fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional and even beyond that. We are not multi-dimensional beings. We are every dimensional beings. That one thing that allows for us to be the embodiment of that is a quality of what I call a greater love. We can call it unconditional. We can call it this ancient love, the grandmother wisdom type of love, this divine feminine that holds and nurtures us in our process of becoming a better human. But I like to call it simply a greater love. It's just greater and greater and greater. That way we're not referencing conditional in order to figure out what unconditional is, and we're able to learn and live in the singularity of an undivided world. And in that we can see, we can feel, we can sense, and we can find a way into any situation if we are aiming our intentions to be based in love. We then have compassion that all the great Eastern teachers spoke about as a gateway into this dimension and out of this dimension to connect the continuum once again. And we are able to be self-loving at the same time. We are not excluding ourselves from the greatness of what we can imagine and dream of. We're allowing it to be true for us too, not just for other out there, over there, somewhere, someday, but to be right here with it. And to allow this love to be what collects in this body. And as a byproduct of that, it guides our thoughts and our imagery and our ideas, our actions, our words, which creates a chemistry inside our system that allots for epigenetics to receive information on the surface of our cells to produce more chemicals that support our divine selves, because the embodiment of that divinity, I feel, is really best expressed by the greatest love that we can imagine and being available for even more of it to stream through us every moment. It allows us to rewrite our beliefs about self and others. It allows us to step through the divisive gaps that have occurred in our cultures and that have been imposed upon us in some sort of non-conscious way, inundated by the media in every form, and the beliefs of those that are speaking louder from the bully perspective of needing to drive it in their way. There's something that everything dissolves in. There's something that is the universal solvent that bonds us back together again in a conscious and creative manner. And I feel that quality of energy is best described and experienced as a greater love. So I think it's valuable maybe to blend this into the mix of what we're working with here today, if we're wanting to embody as the divine self that we are and learn how to express outward into the world. It can also be a tough love, and it can be a real clear love, and it can be what grandma did when you were jumping on her furniture and she didn't want you to, but it's all based in love for the greater good for all. So I'll stop there and see where we want to go. I get so passionate about this, so hopefully that's helpful.
Well, Sue, I love it when you talk that way, and I learn something from you every time I hear it. So thank you for that.
Indeed, and to kind of, if it's possible to wrap this last part of our conversation into a little beautiful wrapper, a little heart-shaped box, I think we feel the presence of the divinity flowing through you, Dr. Sue, and as well as you, Gregg, and thank you for inviting that, for invoking that, because I'm inspired to tune into this place, because this is very much a time where we can invoke the presence of divinity within ourselves, not through the guru or through the workshop or any of this, not to take anything away from that, but to say yes to ourselves, yes to our heart, yes to our souls, and yes to our collective indelible nature as divine humans. that are in relationship not only with free will, but divine will. And I was reminded by both of you were sharing of our late beloved dear friend, Barbara Marx Hubbard. And Barbara spent much time right here in my studio, right here in this room. We talked a lot about Sri Aurobindo. That was really a great place of connection with her. And then her ultimate dream and her ultimate vision of this time that is now arriving and fully present for each of us to step into this place of the noosphere, as she loved to say, in all her wonderful little ways of sharing things. So thank you both for inviting the divinity of our lives, of our being, into the presence of what we're sharing. And it kind of answered what I wanted to check in with you both on. So I'm just going to kind of roll it into a nice little wrapper again. And that is what I'm hearing from both of you, and where I certainly feel in my personal life, is that we are not simply people that have a fated existence, that we have shown up at this time to embrace the divinity as part of our co-creative ability to destiny, to creating that destiny individually and collectively. And I don't know if either of you have a thought on any of that, but I think we're really in the same place, that we are destined people if we choose to embrace our authentic power.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Please. Absolutely.
So these are terms. Again, words are important to me, and words are powerful. When we talk about fate, I think our fate as individuals, as families, communities, societies, nations, as a planet, our fate is what awaits for us if we do nothing in our time of extremes. If we allow this ball to just roll aimlessly, our destiny is the fulfillment of our greatest potential. And it is the result of our choice to become the best version of ourselves. There is an ancient battle playing out on our planet right now. It's no secret to anyone listening, of a fundamental battle between good and evil. And the beauty of us winning that battle is you don't have to fight. The way we win that battle is to become the best version of ourselves when we embrace the fullness of what it means to be a divine being in a biological body. We have won that battle. And when I have this conversation, I had the opportunity, I went to the Grammys a couple of years ago and had the opportunity to speak with a lot of musicians about this very conversation. And it was so really, really cool, because every single musician I spoke with, some of them had the awards, some of them were nominated, but they didn't actually get the awards. And I would ask them, where did that music come from? Where did the words of that song come from? And Adam and Sue, every one of them told me the same thing. None of them said it was from them. They all said it came through them from something else, somewhere else, some part of them that they cherish and that they love deeply. And it's the same with artists and writers and musicians. So it tells us that our biological body is the instrument. And Sue said this so beautifully, that you can think of it as the antenna that tunes us to the part of ourselves that is timeless, that is ageless, that is infinite. This is our intuition. So people think they don't have their divinity on board. It's your intuition. When you get that intuitive hit, when you get the words for the song, or the impetus to rearrange the house in a way so that you feel more sacred in your space. I just want to share, as a scientist, there's science that supports this. And there was an experiment that was done recently, and it's kind of a mind blower. I think most people listening are old enough to remember one of the first computer games was called Pong, P-O-N-G, very simple computer game. Scientists began doing an experiment. They have a petri dish full of neurons that are not connected to any biological body. They're just a few neurons sitting together in a dish. And those random neurons are now playing the game of Pong and teaching themselves how to become better and better Pong players. Where do they get the information to play that game? It's not in the neurons, it's not in the cells. Those neurons are antenna that tune into the part of the field that allow them to have that experience. And this is one of the first scientific experiments showing that, and there are all kinds of words. There's consciousness, there's intelligence that come into the conversation, the divinity. The science of artificial intelligence is driving this conversation at light speed, because to create the artificial intelligence successfully, scientists have to understand consciousness, they have to understand intelligence, they have to understand intuition, creativity, and they're beginning to understand it doesn't live in the cells, that the cells are the antenna that tune to something beyond, multidimensionally, interdimensionally. I love that Sue said all dimensionally. And this is the way science and society come together. So we are now learning from the scientific community what our ancestors have told us for thousands of years, that we have everything we need to thrive through the greatest change in recorded human history. And all it requires is for us to love ourselves enough to get out of our own way and allow our divinity, allow our creativity, our intuition, our imagination to flow through us, rather than relying on Chat GPT to do this for us, or rather than rely on a virtual reality visor to play the reality for us, where we're not engaging our brain cells. We have everything we need. The question is, do we love ourselves enough to embrace the deep truth of our fullest potential? And we're answering those questions through every choice we make every day in our lives.